you 1 minute. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the regular scheduled school committee meeting of Monday, March 26, 2018. This is your notice that this meeting is being electronically recorded. Start tonight's meeting with our spotlight event, and tonight it is about the Attleboro Community Academy's partnership with Studley Elementary School. So we'll call up Ms. Cameron, Ms. De Palma. Oh, sure.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to quickly turn it over to Nan Farrell, the science teacher. This was completely her initiative, and she actually brought students with her so that they want to be able to tell you all about their project.
Come on in. I'm going to quickly turn it over to the students. This is how it was a trickle-down effect here. This project, Ms. Cameron was very kind to say that I spearheaded it. Was with her support as well. But I quickly turned this project over to my high school students who took on the role of mentor and teacher to some Studley third graders. So if they would like to come and join their high school buddies through the presentation, they're more than welcome to stand. And they're going to share a few thoughts about their project. So I will hand it over to my high school students and our Studley third graders.
Hi, so I'm Madison. This is my classmates Rob and Stephanie, and we're all part of ACA, which is an alternative high school. And we all collaborated with Studley third graders, and we helped them to understand weather. So we were able to go there and help them design instruments, which we're going to tell you about.
This project was a collaboration between the ACA students and the Studley third graders. The goal was to design a lesson plan and guide the third graders through constructing their own weather instruments and educating them on their products.
For a quick overview of what we did specifically, prior to the meetings every week at Studley Elementary School, we would research what we were going to teach to the students. We made lesson plans to their schedule. We gathered the materials necessary, and we even made our own sheets and activities for teaching the students.
So every week we met once a day for 45 minutes. So our first week was a little bit more relaxed. Everyone was nervous, both the children and us ACA students meeting each other. So to kind of ease that tension, we just did a couple classroom activities. They warm up their classroom with reading each other in different languages, so that was part of what we did, and we shared just a couple quick questions and answers, what we like about school, what we like outside of school, and we found that we had a lot in common with the kids actually. Some of the things that we like about school, such as reading, is something that they were also passionate about. So that was very interesting and fortunate to see. So in week 2, we met on Thursday, and we were able to bring in a lesson plan that we designed set for our students. So we actually designed the lesson plan, and we were able to construct the instruments with them, which they did pretty much on their own, except for a little bit of help with scissors and stuff like that. But it was really nice to see how engaged they were, and they designed some really awesome projects.
On week 3, we like did like a presentation with the 3rd graders. So we actually just pretty much sat back and just watched them tell us what their weather instruments were, how to use them, what part of weather they measure, pretty much stuff like that.
During week 4, it was our final day there, and it was very relaxed compared to the other days. However, we did talk about reviewing what the weather instruments did, why they exist, what they measure, how they worked, making sure that they all knew what they did. And we said goodbye and had a couple snacks too.
So, we did a STEAM showcase as well for this project. So the ACA students went to the STEAM night, of course, along with a couple of our Studley kids. They got to go as well and present their own projects on top of our knowledge. So viewers kind of got, the hands-on bit with the Studley kids presenting their own projects and the deeper understanding that we were able to offer.
So we just have some kind of like closing thoughts. Definitely what I took away from this project is it's very hard to be a teacher. And I definitely have like a greater appreciation for my teachers because we can be some pain sometimes. But it was definitely really rewarding to walk in every day and see the smiles on the kids' faces and to be able to understand who they are as people and what they like about school.
Going off on what Madison said about becoming a teacher, a big part of being a teacher is communicating the information that you are delivering to your students, and it gave a real urgency of understanding how to communicate it, not only understanding it but communicating it. When you put it into words, it's different than thinking it in your head.
Part of our reflection for this project was what we learned most about ourselves. And I think that I can kind of speak for the majority of the students when I say that this taught us that we have something else to offer to the students that maybe our teachers don't have. And working with a different age group was definitely something completely unfamiliar for a lot of people. So that was definitely a good, first time for them. How do you guys feel about it? Want to speak one by one? Want to go first, Avery?
Yeah, I loved working with my high school buddies because they were really sweet and they helped me a lot. And at first I did not know what the barometer did or how it worked, and having them teach me all of this stuff was really great.
At first it felt strange, but when we kept working it really helped.
I liked working with the high school buddies because you can learn a lot about stuff.
I like working with the high school buddies because if we tried a design that didn't work, they would help us make another one.
And I think that kind of wraps everything up.
Thank you guys very much.
Before we move on, does anyone have any questions or comments for the students at all?
Yeah,
Mr. Quinn and Mr. Larson?
I'd love to hear more about what it is you built and what it is that you learned. Avery, I think you talked about you didn't know what some things were and now you do. Can you tell us what it was that you learned?
I learned that the barometer measures the air pressure, and first I thought that I couldn't make a barometer, but clearly my high school buddies taught me how to make one like super easily.
Do you remember how it worked?
So when we made it with like a jar and a balloon, and we made and we put a straw on top of the balloon, and we put it on the jar, and we tied it with the rubber band, and then so when the straw went up, that means that the air pressure was the weather was really warm and sunny, and when when the straw went down, it showed me that it was like cloudy and stormy and really cold outside.
You sure you're in elementary school? Thanks for sharing what you learned.
Mr. Larson?
I was just wondering other than the barometer, what other weather instruments did they build?
Anybody want to share their instrument?
A wind gauge.
What does a wind gauge measure?
It measures the wind pressure.
I made a wind vane. It tells you the direction where the wind is coming from and what direction the wind is pointing.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you. Anyone else for the students, Mr. Geddes?
For the ACA students, how many of you guys were planning on a field in education or meteorology before this? And now that you've gone through it, have either of you picked up an interest, or are you planning to go on for either of those fields?
I personally kind of had like an apprehension when working with younger children. I've been the youngest child of my mother's for a long time, so it's just it's very new, it's very different, and I think this really like opened my eyes towards how that can positively affect me in life.
Awesome.
Mr. Quinn?
Yeah, again for the ACA students, so awesome project. My question is, where do we go from here? Like, any thoughts about how this can be more than just like a one-off thing, or what advice you might give to other students in the district who'd want to do something like this? Yeah.
I think we're definitely really excited about this project, and I know pretty much can say for all of us here, we're graduating in May, which is really exciting, although we're going to be really sad that we can't do any more projects like this. But we have heard some talk of ACA wanting to get back over into Studley elementary schools and kind of branching out. And it's definitely really rewarding, and I'm excited for all the other students that are going to be able to do it next year.
Thank you again to all the students, Studley and ACA students. Great job. Thank you.
That's a tough act to follow. So I want to share some big picture information. I want to show, first of all, how this is all about our mission, okay, which is to create a flexible learning environment and be active participants. And clearly that's what our students did. The project was open to all the students in the environmental science class. And that was a difficult decision for us to make, but we felt that the students really needed to select for themselves. Our biggest concern was attendance. It's our biggest struggle. It's why a big reason why students come to us. And we actually had one student who has very poor attendance, and we said, no, we're going to let him do it. That student had his attendance in his other classes hovers around 44%. But his attendance for this project was 80%. Now, it wasn't perfect, but that's double, almost double. And for the days that the students were at Studley, we had a 100% attendance rate. And not only was it a 100% attendance rate, but they were on time every day, which is also a big struggle. And I want you to understand that we worked at Studley from 2 to 3, and school doesn't start for us till 4 o'clock. So for those students, they had to arrange other transportation. I know at least 2 students had to change their work schedules for those 4 weeks. So it was really a huge commitment for them. Overall, for all of the students, and this includes not just the day they were at, but the whole week in their environmental science class, their attendance rate went up to 92%. So I think that students come because they're engaged, and that there's a clear parallel. I also want to note that I did go back very briefly and I looked at their report cards for Try 2. Some of our students only started with us Try 2, so we can't really look to Try 1. But all of our students who participated in this project did pass all of their other classes, and we did see a jump in their overall grade point average.
And I'll be brief, but just to wrap up, I wanted to share my observation as a classroom teacher. I felt as though through this experience I was no longer a high school teacher but a college professor. I treated my high school students as if they were peers with me. They were 100% reliable. I wasn't chasing after any of them for any assignments. They would voluntarily go home and do work from home and modify curriculum that they were developing for the students. It was really remarkable to see the transformation in how they intrinsically felt about school prior to this learning experience and after. And I'm so proud of them all. And they worked incredibly hard. And Mr. Quinn, I believe you had asked, where do we go from here? That question's eating away at me every night now, because now when I assign a project and this isn't the response, I'm asking myself, what do I need to do differently? Where do I find that motivation? And certainly this is one possible solution, is to continue collaborating with younger students, because it gives them that motivation, but it's eating away at me. So I wanted to thank you for having us here to share this with you today.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments, Mr. Quinn?
To follow up, where do you go from here?
Yes.
Can I give one suggestion?
Sure.
I just got back from ASCD, the conference. I think that this belongs out and not just kept in. I think Attleboro, we need to share it. But this is as good of a story as any that I saw over the weekend. So please don't just keep this to yourself. Figure out ways to share this story with a much larger audience, because I think it's really compelling. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Switch it over to one second. I assume it's on there.
All right, moving on to our business agenda for tonight. We'll start with the report of the superintendent. Mr. Sawyer?
Thank you, Chairman Withers. First, I'd like to comment on what we just saw. I think it's something that we should really reflect on how far we've come as a district. This moment was unimaginable, 5-10 years ago. The students in the ACA historically did not graduate from Attleboro High School. There were students who, we did not have a program for it to help them to meet their goals. And so many of them left us without reaching a high school diploma. And so that not only are they able to stay on track with the ACA, but to come in here and report to have those kinds of learning experiences, I really think is a testament to how committed we are to all students, and how, if we keep at it, we can find ways to reach them all. I want to commend the ACA for being brave enough to go down this path, and I want to thank Studley for welcoming them in and letting this happen. And it was a real win for both schools, as I think you heard tonight, and it really exemplifies some of the aspects of our strategic plan, by Studley letting the community in this form of another part of the district. I think they had a benefit to their students, and certainly the ACA students had the benefit of actual teaching. And it's certainly an old saying that you never learn something quite as much as when you have to teach it yourself, which any of my students who I had when I was an early teacher certainly saw in practice. It's the truth. And so it's just it's really great to hear how these things are all fitting together to create a dynamic learning environment in this district. It's fantastic. Okay, so I have a couple items from my report this evening. At our last meeting, Mr. Quinn, you asked why, of all the city buildings, were the schools high on the list for the use of shelters. And, as we talked about, actually, La Salette currently is the primary shelter, but that was without power. And so then the next couple are schools. So why schools and not other buildings? And the answer is more complicated than I'll make it right now, but it boils down to three basic issues that they need to be large enough to hold a large number of people, because while we did not have great demand in the last use of the shelter, in terms of identifying places for shelters, they need to be big enough to hold a large group of people. Two, they need to have their own power. So, again, when La Salette and Attleboro High School didn't, we went to Wamsutta, but, their own source of power in the case that the power is lost is another aspect of it. And then the last one, which I wasn't aware of, but now I know, they need to be able to serve food. And so the schools obviously make good shelters in that regard. So I know you'd asked that question, and I said I'd get back to you, and
thank you.
There is that answer. Next, I wanted to just talk quickly about the school calendar. We have had 5 snow days, which makes the last day of school for students June 21st. That's a Thursday. And the last day for teachers, the 22nd, which is a Friday. I would remind everyone that in accordance with state regulation, we plan a school year of 185 school days. And so we published June 21st as the last day of school for students, and that's exactly where we're landing. And that's the point of all of that. I would also say that the good news is that in accordance with regulations, after April 1st, any days that we miss, not that we're planning on missing any, but any days you miss, you do not have to make up if you've already made your 185 days. So at this point, if we make it to Thursday, we will be able to commit to the 21st under any circumstance. And then that would be in accordance with regulation. The last thing I would mention is that I know that because other communities have a slightly different situation, some people are talking about changing their calendars, cutting into vacations and things like that. I would just remind everyone that this is part of the reason why we went to an earlier start, so that even with 5 days, we're ending on the 21st, which still gives us, gets us out of here a full week ahead of where some people are going to land, and that was part of the reasoning. I've seen myself, some people question about, well, why don't we pull it back a day and not have school on Good Friday? And I just want to remind everybody that we did try the Good Friday thing once, and we learned some lessons, which I think has been forgotten. So I just wanted to take a moment to remind everybody that, first of all, we have bargaining units that have Good Friday listed as a holiday. So to have school is to need to pay people in those units time and a half above and beyond their normal salary. So there's an expense involved with going on Good Friday. And the other is that because Good Friday is a religious holiday for many of our teachers, the number of substitutes that would be required to cover for the number of people who would actually need that day off actually makes it an impractical event, which is why we continue to reserve Good Friday in the way that we do. So I had seen that some people were asking about that, and I just thought I'd address that directly, just that we've gone down that road and it doesn't quite work out the way we'd like it to. So that's it for the calendar. I also wanted to comment on the walkout that the high school had last week. I think that it received quite a bit of attention from a very wide audience, and as I commented to you in my update on Friday, I do believe that in many cases adults on both sides of the issue looked to capitalize on the situation for their own political gains. And it was the job of the administration to ensure that what we did here in Attleboro was apolitical and was driven by what students wanted to do and how students felt about things, because we are committed to student voice and this is an issue of their concern. And I believe, by and large, we preserved that. I just wanted to sort of stick up for the students for a second. I've seen, quite a bit of pushback, people questioning their decision-making around this. And, I feel like, we have a responsibility as adults to hear what the kids have to say. And I think we should be good listeners. And for the people that are concerned that for the students that, walked out were somehow disrupting their education, there is something to be learned in participating in an activity like the one that we provided, a structured activity, not the sort of unstructured thing that I think some people imagined was going on. And so we really tried to ensure that the entire experience was educational and that there was room for people on both sides of the issue to be able to feel safe to express their opinion, because we should not assume that everyone sees this issue the same way. And we worked hard to do that, and I believe that we did, and that I appreciate the high school went through the strides that they did, because it's not an easy thing to do to accommodate for the feelings of 1,700 different kids. So that's my my update on that. Finally, just a couple updates on things coming up. K Information Night, which for those of you following, this is our 4th attempt at K Information Night. That will be tomorrow, Tuesday, March 27th at 6:30. People should report to their home school for K Information Night, which is going to actually happen this week. We also have the All-District Choral Festival this Wednesday here at Attleboro High School in the Bray Auditorium. That's at 6:30. Very excited to be bringing all the schools together for that. And then on Thursday evening, the 29th at 7 p.m. in the Bray Auditorium, we also have the National Honor Society and the National Technical Honor Society induction ceremonies here at Attleboro High School. So those are some important events this week that I thought I should make everyone aware of. At this time, I'd like to invite up Laura DeSimone, who will be giving us a presentation on our annual report. And I would just like to say that the annual report has really evolved over the last couple of years from where I certainly became aware of it as a thing. When I first started my involvement with the annual report, it was a very dense and technical document that did not really invite anyone to actually read it. I have to give Laura's predecessor, Jean Dyer, some real credit in setting a new course with a new vision of it. And I just wanted to commend Ms. DeSimone for taking the next step in that evolution and really helping to create an engaging document that I think anyone in this community would enjoy perusing.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. I appreciate that.
I know a lot of work goes into it. It's a tough thing to coordinate with so many inputs, and I'm very happy with the outcome. At this time, I'll turn it over to Ms. Regan for a couple comments.
So we're happy to have Laura here tonight. I know this has been a challenging year for her to step into this role with the transition from Park back to MCAS, as well as, moving from a school level position to a district level position. There's a lot of learning and growth that needs to happen in order for her to understand the district as a whole. So we're happy that she's here tonight. We're also happy because we can actually see her dedication to the Attleboro Public Schools. She is not only dedicated as an employee, but also as a parent of 2 Attleboro students herself. So without further ado, I'd like Laura to share with us the presentation for the annual report.
Thank you, Mrs. Regan. And, good evening, school committee. Hope everyone's well. And we're here tonight to showcase the 2016-2017 annual report. Everybody has got your hard copy, and you've had the chance to review the electronic copy. Okay. How does this move forward?
Other way, other button.
Takes one good hand to work a clicker. Okay. The theme for tonight is that it takes many hands to educate a child. Ryunosuke Satoru, a Japanese writer, once said, "Individually we are one drop, and together we are an ocean." When many people work together, they can accomplish far more than they can alone. The 2016-2017 annual report documents all the wonderful work of many individuals and departments that are critical to each child's success in Attleboro Public Schools. Many distinct pieces, one mission. A concerted effort was made this year to include the departments that are essential to educating each and every child. Each of the areas above represents a hand in that educational effort. academic supports and services software. Aspen and Naviance are two student-centered software programs used throughout the district to guide all stakeholders, whether they be teachers, parents, or staff members. And the highlights of each of these programs are listed on the slide. Academic Supports and Services Programs 1. The Massachusetts Tiered System of Support is a framework that helps all students, that helps all schools improve the performance of all students by identifying needs early and using interventions skillfully to address those needs. The MTSS grant supports the implementation of 4 integral programs throughout the district. PBIS, which is the Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports, UDL, which is the Universal Design for Learning, the K-4 Literacy Action Team, and lastly, the DIT, or the District Implementation Team. Academic Supports and Services Programs 2. The MCIEA is doing some exciting and innovative initiatives throughout the Commonwealth. Their system focuses on a school quality framework that includes multiple measures of student engagement, student achievement, school environment, and emphasizes performance assessments, much like we saw in the previous presentation, in the classroom to measure students' deeper mastery of content and skills. Currently, throughout the district, there are 3 schools working with MCIEA: the high school, Coella Middle School, and Willett Elementary School. The emphasis is on project-based learning, again, just like we saw earlier, and validated performance assessments. And it should be of note, too, that Attleboro was one of 6 districts throughout the Commonwealth, so that's a pretty impressive place to be. Curriculum and instruction. The movie, Most Likely to Succeed, really started some meaningful conversation a year ago about project-based learning in the district. Since this movie, there have been student showcases in which students demonstrate their learning in a hands-on fashion. About 400 students, educators, family members, and community members showed up for this movie. Admission was free, and childcare was available to maximize attendance. For the record, there was no popcorn, but probably could have been. It's a great movie, really, really nice movie. Curriculum and instruction, STEAM. So Benjamin Franklin once said, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn." This is the essence of STEAM throughout the district. Sensata and Depew Synthesis are valuable partners in STEAM achievements throughout the district. Some of the things that they worked on was the 4th grade STEAM night and the STEAM Saturday events, which my kids and I went to. Both of these events were student-centered learning opportunities that were both fun and engaging for students and adults and parents. Curriculum and instruction, ELA. Has everybody seen the result of this out in the hallway? So the 2017 community-wide summer reading theme was Build a Better World. APS partnered with the Attleboro Public Library, the Attleboro YMCA, and the Attleboro Recreation Department. The culminating project was an 8 feet by 12 feet puzzle comprised of 24 2 feet by 2 feet puzzle pieces. And there were many, many student events that centered around this theme. Highlights included a visit by Emily St. John Mandel and a dystopian world dinner hosted by our AHS CTE culinary department. Leadership and action. Coming from 16 years in the classroom, hands down the best lessons were the ones that in which students did the heavy lifting of learning. They were totally engaged and invested in their learning. My job in these lessons was to build a rock-solid foundation with numerous approaches to learning. Students were excited to learn. This is exactly the culture here that Superintendent Sawyer and Assistant Superintendent Regan offer their educators. They encourage staff to stretch their proverbial wings, take risks, and dare to be great. The end result of this great leadership? An empowered staff that strives to be their absolute best and truly feel like they did it themselves. Athletics. We have 1,011 reasons to be proud of Attleboro Public Schools. These student athletes must balance the demands and rigor of a full-time education and being a full-time student athlete. The annual report dedicated 4 of its 65 pages to the accomplishments of these student athletes. Music and theater. As you can clearly see from these pictures, AHS has many performing artists that begin their journeys all the way back to preschool and elementary school. Throughout the district, music and theater programs cultivate creative expression. 2 outlets for the students once they get here to AHS are the music program and theater program. Visual arts. George Bernard Shaw once said, "You use a glass mirror to see your face. You use works of art to see your soul." Attleboro Public Schools has a very robust art program that provides students opportunities to think critically, collaborate, communicate, and be creative. The annual report has a plethora of student artwork throughout it. Physical education. I'll give you a moment to read that quote on that page. This quote, although it was written 20 years ago, it's still very relevant. More recently, in June 2017, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention stated regular physical activity can help children and adolescents improve their cardiorespiratory fitness, build strong bones and muscles, control weight, reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, and reduce the risk of developing health conditions. The takeaway, physical education is really important for school-age children. Career and technical education. The CTE program embraces the cornerstone of STEAM education here in Attleboro by learning by doing. Last year, 570 students were enrolled in the 12 vocational programs currently here at the high school. The freshman exploratory class exposes students to areas of study that they are interested in learning more about. And there are 4 potential new programs that are going to be joining the high school: cosmetology, dental assisting, HVAC, and robotics. Health and wellness. There were many health and wellness initiatives that took place across the district last year. These activities and events promoted healthy eating, physical activity, nutrition education, and physical education in order to increase student achievement. Students and staff logged many miles during the YMCA Step Challenge, and students continued fitness efforts during the YMCA Walking Bus and through the BOX program, which is the Build Our Kids Success program at the elementary schools. Whitson School Nutrition. Whitson's and APS have been partnering for 9 years and counting. They are committed to the health and wellness of all students through fueling their bodies with nutritious meals, popular menu choices, and education programs. Their yearly Welcome Back to School cookout is a big hit across all district schools. Information technology. Perhaps the best improvements through the district have come from the hard work of the staff in information technology. This department has created an additional 140 Wi-Fi access points throughout the elementary and middle schools. Over 1,000 Chromebooks were deployed. We certainly wouldn't be able to offer our 21st century education without these folks. A hearty thank you to the information technology. Transportation. If anybody knows a bus driver, they know the special job that they do every day. It takes a very special person to be able to do that. These drivers carry our most precious assets in the district each day. In fact, 4,000 assets. The backbone to the drivers are the expert planners in the APS Transportation Department. In fact, many drivers have been with Attleboro for over a decade. So on that first day of school, school doors, bus opens, or the doors on the school bus open, there's a familiar face greeting those children. Facilities. In my opinion, these folks are the unsung heroes in this district. They work tirelessly to ensure that students have a clean classroom and a clean building in which to learn. The district partners with Sodexo to meet the district's needs for facility cleaning, maintenance and repair of buildings, athletic fields, and associated equipment. Financial resources. So what enables all these wonderful facets or hand in each child's education? Of course, the bottom line, money, right? So over 83% of every dollar spent in APS goes directly to the excellent faculty and staff as salaries and benefits. 15% goes to contractually obligated expenditures, which leaves about 2% for discretionary funding. To ensure I don't leave anyone out of this very wonderful document, I'd like to read this slide in its entirety. There are many people throughout the district who are not classroom teachers, but without whom educating students would not be possible. Students need a well-maintained school building to attend, safe school buses to ride, computers to learn, healthy food to eat, athletics and physical education to move their bodies, music to develop rhythm, theater to explore other personas, visual arts to delve into different perspectives, career and technical education to prepare for post-school success, educational financial resources to pay for the educational needs, leadership to academic supports and services to enable learning for all, curriculum and instruction to learn, and lastly, leadership to provide direction for 1, more personalized guided planning for all students, 2, improved quality and relevance of all learning experiences, and 3, greater community and external engagement. The work of all APS employees is equally important in the huge task of educating students. To summarize, the Attleboro Public Schools is a wonderful place for students to learn, for parents to get involved, and for staff to spread their proverbial wings, because we are empowered to do so. These 2 people, Superintendent Sawyer and Assistant Superintendent Regan. And so with a lot of gusto, I say, go Blue Pride. And that concludes my presentation. Are there questions?
Thank you very much. Anyone have any questions on the report or on the presentation? I know it's a lot of information to digest.
No, it's great going through the.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Appreciate that.
Mr. Quinn?
Remember when you last presented to us, one of the things that impressed me the most and impressed me again here was that you actively sought feedback to try to make it better and make it your own. And I think that you did that. This is really comprehensive, and I think the previous ones were really impressive, so it just keeps getting better. One thing that came to mind as I'm looking through this, and just maybe something for the longer horizon, would it be interesting to have an annual, or like a piece of the annual report address to what extent are we engaging, challenging, and inspiring students, and having that piece, and then also kind of how are we progressing towards the vision in terms of being that center of the community, united around education, because I think what we have here is really comprehensive, and just wanted to kind of toss that out.
Okay.
Not to add more to this really full plate, but I think it would just be really interesting to explore that, how we're that mission piece.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Absolutely.
Mr. Geddes?
Do you mind quickly walking through, because I know a lot of parents and a lot of folks that review the district are always concerned about test scores, graduation rates, and I see some positive results in here. I was wondering if you might be able to touch on some of those in terms of how we are comparing to where we have been and where we are in relation to the state and things like that.
Okay. So I assume that you're talking about page 19? Or what page are you on, Mr. Geddes?
Really everything from 12 to, I mean, it's, like I said,
Okay.
it's not in significant detail,
Yeah,
but just
okay.
generally speaking.
Sure.
Because we have stuff from PSAT, SAT, AP exams, MCAS. I mean, so am I correct
Just-
generally in saying that we
yes.
are continuing to improve
Absolutely.
across the, okay.
Absolutely, and the goal of the annual report is to give that kind of very high-level viewpoint, right, of where we've been, sometimes historically, and sometimes just that current snapshot of where we are. So yes, this is meant to showcase all the great work, you know, that's being done both academically and, you know, through all of those other proverbial hands.
Awesome. And where is this, I know that we always have printed copies available in the schools, but where is this available electronically? Or is it yet?
It will be online tomorrow.
Perfect.
On our website, yes.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Scales?
Just two things. There was popcorn for the movie.
There was? I was there. I don't remember popcorn, but all right.
And they're really, really good pictures is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Scales. Anyone else? Thank you, Ms. DeSimone.
Thank you, I
Well
appreciate
done.
the opportunity.
Moving on in our agenda, August 1st, that concludes your report, correct, Superintendent Sawyer?
It does, thank you.
Moving on, the next item, last item on our business agenda is MSBA AHS project update. Vote is next Tuesday, April 3rd. There's not much else to report today other than Mr. Sawyer and I had a bittersweet presentation earlier today. We think it was the last presentation on the project that we'll have done over the many we've done over the past year plus. So thank you to the superintendent for continuing to provide the information to the public. But we're here. April 3rd is next Tuesday, and that's the date of the vote, and that, I think, is the report. There's nothing else to report on that. Hopefully we'll have a update at the next meeting where we can explain the steps going forward. Any questions? All right. Moving on, minutes from our March 12th meeting. They were circulated with your packet. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda, motion to approve a field trip proposal for 35 Wamsutta middle students to Lake Compound in Bristol, Connecticut on May 25th, 2018 for the band choir club to attend a judge workshop on how to improve musical performance.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve an overnight international field trip proposal for all three middle school students to attend Japan on April vacation 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a check in the amount of $3,000 broken down as follows. $2,000 to the Scholarship Revolving 1620 Fund and $1,000 to the Gifts Donation Line at Attleboro High School from the J.S. Lim Foundation.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation in the amount of $500 from the Abacus revolving account to support the Willett Elementary School's purchase of a new television for educational purposes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to accept a donation of 9 boys' authentic apparel North Point coats with an estimated value of $270, $30 per coat, from Mr. Enright, who works for the Attleboro Elks.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
That concludes the consent agenda for tonight. Moving on to our subcommittee reports, policy and personnel, Mr. Scales.
I just have one item, and that is that the following policies and exhibits will be removed from the table. GBGCA, Employee Child Care Program. GBGCA E1, Employee Child Care Program Fee Structure. JICH, Alcohol, Tobacco, and Drug Use by Students Prohibited. GCIA, Philosophy of Staff Development. GCK, Staff Assignments and Transfers. GCO, Evaluation of Staff. GCQD, Resignation of Staff. And GCQE, Retirement of Staff Members. Our next meeting is on April 2nd.
Thank you, Mr. Scales. Finance and Budget, Mr. Larson.
Finance and Budget Subcommittee met on July 14th. We went through the monthly finance reports with Mr. Furtado. We had a brief MSBA update. We went through the Student Activity Fund audit, and we had a very brief FY19 budget update. We have two motions to bring forward. First is subcommittee would like to propose a motion to approve the transfer from CTE CTE tuition to special education contractual services as outlined by the finance director, Mr. Furtado's request that was accompanied in your packet.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Yes.
Is there a specific reason for the transfer?
I believe he was moving grant money, if I remember correctly, from one of the lines to the other, so. Any other questions? Yep.
Can you explain what the CTE tuition line is normally used for?
I can't off the top of my
I was
head.
going to say, please don't say CTE tuitions.
Nope, I won't do that to you. But we can find out, and we can
Yeah,
get those
that's fine.
questions.
I mean, obviously, we
Okay.
have the spare funds.
Yes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I believe we had we were in need of contracted services for a special education, is it speech and language pathologist?
I think so, yeah.
That unfortunately had resigned and necessitating a group to come in to fill that role. The other benefit, the reason why these funds were available, if memory serves me again, to clarify,
Sure.
was that we were able to bring more students back in from Tri-County. So there was a reduction in that
think
amount
there were
that was
less than went,
budgeted,
yeah.
less than that went. So it's positive that we had those funds available to fill this need. So that's.
And, sorry, it was psychological testing.
Oh, okay.
And the CTE tuition line is a line for what we pay Tri-County or other
Yes.
schools?
Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And secondly, entertain a motion to approve the scheduling of the FY19 budget public hearing to be held on April 23rd, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. That concludes our report.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Next, we have open forum. Is there anyone who would like to address the committee at open forum? All right, that will close open forum. Next, we'll move into executive session. The Attleboro School Committee will convene an executive session pursuant to MGL Chapter 30A, Sections 21A, 2, and 3 to discuss strategy with respect to negotiations with union personnel and to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining, as an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the school committee. The school committee may or may not reconvene in open session. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Sawyer?
Yes.
Mr. Geddes?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Scales?
Yes.
Mr. Withers, yes. Mr. Larson?
Yes.
Mr. Storrs?
Yes.
Mr. Quinn?
Yes.
All right, let's take 3 minutes.
See. This is the
Got that whole-
thermostat of the United States.
Oh,